What's up everybody, it's Matt from Peter Glenn, and when you're shopping for bindings, it's good to know the different pieces and parts. This makes it a little easier to understand and compare so you can find the bindings that work best for you. All right, so starting at the bottom and working our way up, the first thing is the base plate. The base plate is basically the part that goes underneath your foot and that is in contact with the board. Sometimes they'll have a bushing or a pad system underneath, and sometimes they may not. It really just depends on the specific binding and its design. And then most bindings are gonna have a disc and your mounting hardware. So the disc basically is this round piece that goes inside the binding with teeth on it. This basically helps lock the board in, adjust your angles, and basically get it mounted to the board. Unless you've got some of the EST bindings where those actually have the little channels on the outside, and then you're not gonna have an extra piece, you're basically just gonna have the hardware that screws right into the channel hardware. And then over the top of that, we're gonna have a footbed. So a footbed is basically gonna be some sort of pad, and sometimes it's built into the binding, sometimes like on this ride binding, it's an extra piece that goes over the disc and kind of slides in. But either way, it's some sort of padding that's gonna have a little bit of a toe ramp on the front, some cushioning in the back. Sometimes, again, it is mounted to the binding and you're just gonna have a cover that goes over the disc. But it's basically just like that little extra padding and that little extra lift underneath your feet. And then from there, we go to the heel loops. Some companies have an adjustable heel loop where you're basically gonna mount the binding and then you center your foot up by actually moving the heel loop, where it actually is separate from the base plate. And then when you look at some of the companies, they actually have a fully fixed heel loop where the heel loop is actually part of the base plate, and you basically adjust your foot forward and backward for that centering just by moving the binding itself forward and backward. And then attached to the heel loop, we have the high back. So the high back is basically there to give you extra leverage on your heel side edge and increase that response. Basically what you do is you lean back on your high back pushes down on your heel loop, and that helps lift up the toe edge of your board and give you a good pressure on your heel side edge. It's always easy to get really, really good pressure on your toe side edge because you can drop your weight all on your toe side edge, but you can't do that on your heels, and that's what that high back is there for. And then a lot of the high backs are gonna have some forward lean adjustment. Not all of them, but the majority of them will. Whether it's some sort of spin lock, like on this Burton binding, or a little flip lock on this ride. And sometimes you need to use a screwdriver, but basically what that does is it adjusts the angle of the high back to basically make your board get on the edge super, super quick, or you adjust it up a little bit more for a little bit easier, smoother ride. And then from there, obviously we go to these straps. So the straps are broken up into three parts. You basically have the pad or the cradle part that basically goes over your ankle. It might not have padding. It might be shaped for comfort instead of adding padding for comfort. Again, it just depends on the binding and the binding style. And then you have the ladder strap, which is the part on the outside that goes into your ratchets. Which obviously brings us to the ratchets, or sometimes the companies call them buckles. And those are obviously the pieces that you use to ratchet your foot into the binding and get that thing nice and snug. So those are the standard pieces and parts that make up the majority of the bindings on the market. Obviously there can be some little extras here and there depending on the company and depending on the specific binding. But for the most part, those are the pieces that are most important to kind of compare your bindings side by side to find the binding that works best for you. But if you got any questions beyond what we talked about in the video, definitely leave some comments down below. We're on there every single day trying to answer your questions. We want to make sure we can get you into some rad gear, but most importantly, we want to make sure that you can pick out and find the gear that's going to work best for you. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and definitely get that notification bell on too so you can find out when all the new videos drop. Grab yourself a new set of bindings, get them mounted up, and get out and ride. Because any day of riding is a good day of riding.